We need to speak plainly about the erosion that happens in long commitments. Not the grand, dramatic failures, but the subtle, quiet vanishing of things that matter. You find yourself in a place you didn't choose, but that you slowly built brick by brick, a life structured entirely around stability. And stability, while essential for survival, is often the enemy of vitality. You start to notice the emotional emptiness not as a sudden crisis, but as a lack of background noise. The silence that settles between you is not the peace of deep understanding. It is the space where curiosity used to live. In a long marriage, the greatest danger is that you stop seeing the person you live with. You replace them with a reliable, predictable character in your shared narrative. You stop asking questions because you assume you already know the answers. That assumption, that total familiarity, is precisely what hollows out the connection and creates the vacuum that other people inevitably fill. You begin to feel a restlessness, a yearning for an energy that your primary relationship no longer seems capable of providing. This is where many people panic, believing that the emergence of desire for someone else is proof of their moral failure, or a definitive sign that their marriage is dead. But it is rarely that simple. That attraction you feel towards a different person is often not about rejecting your partner. It is about searching for a lost version of yourself. It is about accessing a suppressed energy, a potential identity that your current life structure cannot accommodate. When you encounter someone who makes you feel alive, vibrant, or interesting again, you are not necessarily falling in love with them, you are falling in love with the person you become in their presence. This confusion is profound, because it forces you to confront the cost of your security. We must acknowledge a difficult truth that many long-term partners refuse to speak aloud, that fidelity, for many people, eventually becomes less of a heroic, active choice, and more of an existential inertia. It is the path of least resistance. It is the avoidance of pain, the fear of dismantling a life, the sheer exhaustion of having to rebuild everything from scratch. Some profound thinkers have suggested that we often confuse fidelity with merely a lack of late courage. You stayed not because of the active, daily, joyous choice to be present, but because the volatility of the desired was simply too frightening compared to the predictability of the known. You remained because you did not have the courage required to face the necessary destruction that true change demands. This realization is devastating because it introduces the element of passivity into what you believed was a commitment built on strength. The emotional drift between partners is often slow, silent, and entirely attributable to mismatched emotional expectations. It is common, especially after children or high-stress careers define the home environment, for men and women to begin speaking two entirely different languages of intimacy. For many women, the primary relationship becomes the central project management unit. Intimacy is expressed through shared organizational success, planning, and meticulous coordination. The need is for recognition of the emotional labor involved in maintaining the structure. For many men, intimacy remains defined by a search for affirmation, for physical closeness, or for a return to the playful lightness that existed before responsibility became overwhelming. The need is for escape from the weight of that structure. When one partner offers a detailed report on the finances or the children's schedules, and the other seeks a deep, affirming reflection on their personal worth, they are speaking past each other. The distance accumulates not in grand arguments, but in the mundane, unanswered requests for connection. This misalignment means that both partners eventually feel starved. They feel misunderstood, not because they are bad communicators, but because their fundamental definition of what the marriage is for has diverged. This is the point where desire truly begins to fail. We must distinguish clearly between desire, neediness, and connection. You need your partner. You need them for co-parenting, for financial stability, for shared history. Neediness is the anchor. It holds the ship in place. But desire is the engine. It requires space, tension, and a degree of mystery. Desire cannot flourish under the constant weight of mutual dependency. When the relationship becomes defined solely by shared obligation, by the sheer logistics of life, desire suffocates. It requires the willingness to see your partner not as the co-pilot of the project, but as a separate, sovereign being whom you must actively pursue. When you ask yourself if you still want your partner, you must be honest about whether you are mistaking the comfort of the anchor for the thrill of the engine. A long marriage demands that we find a way to honor both security and vitality, without letting one drag the other into obsolescence. It requires a difficult, active choice to re-engage with the person you married, not the character you invented for them. The great challenge of mature love is accepting that the person you chose is not static, and neither are you. The contract you signed years ago is obsolete. The real work begins when you realize you are married to a stranger, and you must decide whether to learn that stranger all over again. This requires genuine risk. And risk is always the measure of courage. The courage required now is not the courage to leave. It is the far more difficult courage required to stay differently. It is the courage to admit that the structure you built, while safe, is emotionally bankrupt. It is the courage to look at your partner and confess that you have stopped seeing them, and that you are terrified of what happens next. This moment demands a kind of internal grief. You must mourn the loss of the person you thought you had securely catalogued. You must let go of the comfort of the shared fantasy, the illusion that you both remain the same people who first pledged commitment years ago. You cannot rebuild the connection until you allow for the necessary destruction of the old contract. Many people resist this process because they confuse stability with fusion. They believe that true commitment means becoming one undifferentiated unit, where separateness is a sign of failure. But that fusion is precisely what kills desire. Desire requires space. It demands that your partner remain, in some fundamental way, autonomous, unpredictable, and slightly out of reach. When you know everything, you desire nothing. The mature work is to reintroduce a healthy distance. Not physical distance, but the psychological space that allows your partner to possess their own inner life, their own secrets, and their own sovereign self. You cannot desire what you already own completely. This means consciously stepping back from the role of the shared project manager. You must shift the language of the relationship away from logistics and back toward identity. Stop asking only about the calendar, the bills, or the children's activities. Start asking the questions that have no utilitarian value. What are you reading? What frightens you now that didn't frighten you 10 years ago? Where do you feel judged in your life? These are the questions of a curious stranger. They force you to acknowledge the profound truth that the person sitting across from you is a mystery that has never been fully solved. When you stop treating your partner as a known quantity, you stop taking their presence for granted. You begin the difficult, necessary work of active engagement. This requires you to confront the real reason why you felt the pull towards someone else. It was not because your partner was deficient, it was because your shared life structure had become too rigid to accommodate the full spectrum of your own identity. If you recognize that the attraction was about finding a lost piece of yourself, then the true act of courage is to bring that lost piece home. The energy, the vibrancy, the intellectual spark that you found in the gaze of another person, that energy belongs to you. The challenge is integrating that rediscovered vitality back into the existing architecture of your life, without destroying the foundation of security you value. This integration is the essence of mature love. It is the continuous, conscious negotiation between the need for an anchor and the need for an engine. It means accepting that every long marriage is, in fact, a series of short marriages to a succession of different people. The person you married 5 years ago is gone. The person you married 15 years ago is a historical figure. The promise you keep is not the one you made on your wedding day. That contract is irrelevant. The only promise that matters is the one you renegotiate today, the promise to remain present, curious, and actively engaged with the person standing before you now, who is inevitably a stranger. This means accepting that there will be periods of dissatisfaction. There will be times when the relationship feels heavy, or dull, or profoundly difficult. The expectation that a single partner can fulfill every single emotional, sexual, and intellectual need across 5 decades is not just unrealistic, it is a burden that crushes connection. Studies and observations show that the happiest long-term couples are not those who eliminated conflict or temptation, but those who mastered the art of continuous adjustment. They understood that the relationship is not a fixed monument to be preserved, but a living system that requires constant, sometimes uncomfortable, recalibration. They understood that true fidelity is not a passive state of inertia, but an active, daily choice to rebuild the connection, even when it is easier to look away. It is the willingness to risk the known comfort for the vital uncertainty of the present moment. That willingness is the definition of late courage. And that courage is what determines whether the commitment survives, not merely as an arrangement of logistics, but as a source of genuine,
If this
vital
helped
love.
you, subscribe now for more videos like this. Thank you.